Hi, my dear students. How are you? Everything's fine, except quarantine. As usual, it's a very bad situation. I hope it will finish early. I think around 1 month it will be finished. Don't worry about it. Everything will be fine after quarantine. Now, today's topic is the language of the photography. Yes, some of you are my students. I think missed the courses, online courses. Because of that, I'm recording, and then you can get your lessons, your PowerPoints, and your recording from them. You can get. And next week, I'm gonna give your final project, almost your midterm project finished. And some of the students sent to me, and it was okay. It was a good project. And next week, I'm gonna give your final project. And also, you should finish your PowerPoint about press photographer. You're going to prepare a PowerPoint presentation about any press photographer and biography and his or her awards and their photographers, which year and which kind of award and which category you are going to write, and then you will put your presentation photographers works. So today, this week, I'm going to talk about the language of photography. This is a very important topic in photography. This chapter explores how photographs communicate and presents definitions and discussion questions on elements of photography. Yes, this photography is 1997, and with Munich is the action photo after Hans Damnut. It's a very important photography. Yes. We will talk about how photos, how press photographs speak. Of course, photographs is a storyteller. Photographs should tell something. In press photography and event photography, we have to understand different kind of messages on your photos. The word photography is derived from the Greek words photo, which means light, and graph, as you know, which means writing. Photography is writing with light. As a type of writing, photography as a visual language, an alphabet of tone and hue, a grammar of line and form, it is visual patterns, or it is sentences. The photography is silently articulate, communicating its message through an arrangement of color and shape. The language of photography is distinguished from other visual arts by its two essential elements, light and, of course, camera. Light rays reflect off surfaces and into the camera, where light-sensitive film or a digital disc records the image. The resulting photography describes the world in a tonal spectrum and marked by the highlights and the shadows. Technical considerations such as lighting choices, film, and camera type determine the final look of the image. Different lighting choices, film and camera. Of course, now we are going to use the SD card and camera, DSLR camera. but light is also a very important part. All old and also nowadays, and also it will be important feature. Camera controls such as shutter speed and aperture produce photographic attributes such as focus and blur. Looking throughout a rectangular frame, the photographer views and creates images. Framing, cropping, and vantage point or point of view are other characteristic elements of photography. I talked about the composition criteria before as photography, and very important rules, golden rules about photography. And also cropping and framing is also this kind of composition criteria in different categories of photography. Photographer Henry Carter Bresson coined the phrase the decisive moment to describe the instant when an event takes place in the camera, when a photographer sees all the graphic forms in the camera frame and decides to take the picture. For example, a photographer watches as a man walks down the street, and the photographer takes the picture when the man's hat fits squarely in the window frame. Photographers make artistic choices when creating, editing, and producing their images. These choices take into account the elements of photography, photographic attributes. Example, focus and blur. Should be focus on or should be blurry, out of focus. The composition of the image, the subject or content, the photographer's style or voice, genre, or incendent use such as advertising or fine art exhibition, and the meaning that the photographer intends to communicate. The resulting images have many meanings depending on how they are interpreted. In some cases, they present more questions than answers. In other cases, these artworks bear a close relationship to the look of the real world and to the moment at which they were created. They resemble our own faces, homes, and lives so closely that we consider them to be mirror-like truths of the world. Photography, the reaction of light and silver crystals, translates the world into a collection of dots that our eye and mind synthesize into the pictures. A moment of happiness shown on a face, a glimpse of an ordinary day, an incongruous situation that makes us as laugh, a place of beauty, a scene of conflict, a historic event, a moment that should not be forgotten. The process of synthesis or seeing is as fluid and rapid as the roaming movements of the eye itself and the scientific lighting of our thoughts. It happens immediately. This language is accessible. Living in a media-saturated culture, we consume visual images, responding with our senses, emotionally, cognitively, all at once and somewhat hungrily, as if we are popping a chocolate into our mouths. We interpret photographic images in the same way as we navigate throughout the world by visual signs every day. Now, We are well aware of the power of visual image to communicate something mysterious and something clear. For creators, image making is a way of projecting out thoughts and emotions and leaving a tracing of ourselves in the world. For viewers, visual images are a way to connect to ourselves and to one another. Between creator and viewers, photographs carry on a dialogue with the past, present, and future. It is important to remember that photographs can play tricks on us, just as our eyes can deceive us. For example, in Action Photo 1, Vic Muniz recreated a painting by Hans Nemeth portraying an artist at work. To create the image, Muniz poured Bosco chocolate syrup on a light table in thin lines that imitated the Nemont's painting. Then he photographed the liquid design. Muniz had to work quickly before the syrup melted under the hot lights. In the resulting photography, the viewer sees the dark lines, shapes, and angles and interprets a man creating art on a canvas. When the viewer acknowledges that it's a photography of chocolate syrup, a variety of reactions emerges: surprise, laughter, hunger. Muniz calls attention to the process of seeing, how we interpret visual information, and the fallacies of such visual information and the pleasure to be derived from such fallacies. These illusions are made to reveal the architecture of our concept of truth. Art, directly or indirectly, has always to deal with illusion. When Muniz plays with the gap between the image and reality, he reminds us that art is the representation of life, a play for the mind, a delight for the senses, and nourishment for the soul. Art is essentially a communication. Art speaks in the language of its media. It uses techniques that are designed to inspire responses. As Muniz shows us, art making and the interpretation of art are best approached in the spirit of play and with an appreciation for the many wondrous responses it inspires. Yes, another important topic is elements of the language of photography. Following is a comprehensive list of important elements of the language of photography. The elements are arranged into categories: photographic attributes, composition, content, style, genre, and meaning. Definitions and guiding questions explore each element. Following is a comprehensive list of important elements of the language of photography. The elements are arranged into categories: photographic attributes, composition, content. I wrote it. In focus, the term photography includes different types of image created with light, ranging from black and white prints to digital images. While the techniques differ, the same educational principles apply for interpreting, discussing, and creating all kinds of photographic images. While reading this section, you may find it useful to consider the elements and the questions in regard to a sample photography. Because this is such a comprehensive list, One approach is to review the elements relevant to a particular class, discussion, or elements about which you have particular questions. This material is intended for educators to review and adapt as necessary for their students. For guidance on discussion these elements with your students, see Chapter 3, Visual Literacy. Also for direct use with students are the resources in Part 4, including discussion questions, worksheets, and activities that build students' knowledge of the elements of photography. Yes, preview of elements by category. Photographic attributes. Yes, I explained this part before. Light, focus, in focus, out of focus, blurry. Time, of course, timing is so important in press photography. And motion, we have to capturing the motion. For example, we have to use the shutter speed mode for Nikon camera, DSLR camera, S mode S. For Canon, we will use a TV mode for shutter speed priority mode TV, and we will catch the motion, freeze the motion, something else. We are going to use shutter speed mode. And another one, vantage point, point of view, and framing, nature frame, and something framing. Also framing is a very important composition criteria in photography. And cropping, we will decide the cropping part for our image and for our page on online or normal newspaper, on media. And another one, last one, technical issues, and objectives, flash, something else. And another part is composition, shape, a line, different kind of lines, S lines and triangles, also is composition. And angles, camera angles, different camera angles, color and tone, pattern, depth of field, and composition overall. And content, subject, first one, background, foreground, people, story, mood, feeling, symbol, metaphor. Another section is style and genre. Also an important element for category of photography, language of photography. And meaning, artist, intention, purpose, meaning. Meaning is also an important part, the language of photography. Yes, photographic attributes A to H. First one, of course, light. Category A is light. Light is the defining elements of photography. Light literally brings the photography to life, and the type and quality of light have the strongest effect on the resulting image. Often photographers are inspired to create a photography because the light is so lovely, casting on the subject a quality unequally rendered by film. Describe the type and quality of the light. Type and source is the light natural, example from the sun, daylight, or artificial, example from a lamp, flash, stereoscope. And how does the type, source of lighting affect the look of the image? And quality, direction, is the lighting coming from above, below, the side. At what angle? Are there any shadows? Does the direction of the light create an effect of dimension? Quality characteristics, is the light soft or hard? Are the shadows thin or thick? The light and shadow make a pattern. Light and shadow, the light and dark tones in the image often provide the most compelling patterns in a photography. Look closely at the light and dark tones in the image. Find the shadows. Describe the pattern that light and shadow make. And what kind of effect and mood do the light and shadow create? And second one, B, category B, is focus. Focus, out of focus, focus on, blurry. Focus part is so important because of the published photography, press photographer. The word focus means center of attention. This unequally photographic attribute is created by both the focus and the aperture controls on the camera. Aperture controls, and as you know, aperture means f value. If you want to make everywhere will be focus on, everywhere, all focus, all your image full focus, we are going to use big F number, everywhere will be focus on. But if you want the part of focus of your image, part of focus, small focus part, you are going to open aperture. It means F number should be small. For example, 1.8, small F number, open aperture, and small part is focus on, another part will be blurry. You are going to focus on your message part, and we will use small f number. The focus control centers on a part of the image, and when in focus, the area is clear, sharp, and detailed with distinctions between forms. When out of focus, the area is cloudy, indistinct, and vague with blurriness between forms. The aperture control creates depth of field, the area that is in focus. Aperture measures the distance from the end of the focus area to the focal center. A shallow depth of field is in focus only the small degree around the focal center. For example, in figure 8, the tree trunk is clearly rendered while the branches into the foreground are blurry. Figure 9 shows a wide depth of field, a large area in focus around the focal center. The bench, shrubs, and trees are all clear. What can you see clearly in the picture? What is unclear? How does focus capture our attention? Can sharp focus capture our attention as well as blurry focus can? As a result of focus, does the subject gain or lose significance? Does the subject seem realistic or idealized? Yes, figure 8 and figure 9. We're going to analyze them. You will check which part is focus on, which part is out of focus, blurry, and which kind of meaning on those photos. We will talk about it next class. The second part is time. C, category C is time. Photography has an acute relationship to time, in part because the image is created by the interaction among light, a lens, and light-sensitive film during a particular moment. Light rays refracting throughout the lens trace the image onto film. This happens in an instant and reflects the instant in which the image was created. A drawing or painting may describe a particular time and place, but it can be rendered over time throughout the artist's perception or memory. In contrast, a photographer and camera need to be there, responding to the world, in order to create the image. Photographs have the quality of capturing a moment in time, of being there. Describe the sense of time that comes across into the image. Does it seem like a fleeting instant captured in a snapshot? Or does it carry the timeless quality of a painting? Consider the composition, technique, content, and style of the image. How do these image elements contribute to the attribute of time? Yes, motion. Another important step is motion. In a photography, motion can appear frozen in time and space or be described throughout blur. These effects are archived mainly throughout the shutter control and the aperture. The shutter, triggered by your finger when you take the picture, opens and shuts like a blinking eye, letting in light. The aperture affects how much light comes into the camera. It works like the iris of an eye, widening in the dark to let in more light and narrowing in the bright sun to let in less light. In order to archive a correct exposure, the right amount of light to make the picture, the aperture and shutter speed must have the right relationship. When there is a lot of light, the shutter speed is fast, and when there is a little light, the shutter speed is slow. The faster the shutter, the more able the camera is to freeze motion, such that someone jumping could be forever suspended in mid air. A slow shutter speed creates blur when figures are in motion. You can also create a sense of motion by moving the camera when you take the picture, called panning the camera, resulting in blur. Motion is anything moving in the picture. How can you tell? Is it blurry or frozen in space? Can you guess how the effect is archived? Yes, E. Next step, vantage point of view. Vantage point or point of view is the photographer's stance, both in terms of how the photographer is positioned when he or she takes the picture and what the photographer's attitude is towards the subject. How the photographer perceives the subject influences how the photographer chooses to position himself or herself in relation to the subject. This is similar to how your opinion about something affects the tone of your voice and the language you use to communicate. Point of view is one of the most important concepts to convey to young people because it shows that they have the creative control and power to reveal their perspective throughout the camera. An understanding of point of view also encourages image makers to move around the subject and determine the most interesting and revealing approach. Where was the photographer when he or she took the picture? Was the photographer standing or crouching or lying on the ground? Did the photographer take the picture from above, below, or the side? Did the photographer tilt the camera or keep it parallel to the horizon? Can you guess what the photographer's attitude is towards the subject? How does the vantage point affect the way you look at the resulting picture? For example, a picture taken from above may give the impression of superiority, from below of inferiority, and a host of other interpretations. Yes, the last one, framing. Whenever photographers create a photography, they are selecting a slice of the world as described throughout the frame. In terms of content, framing is like point of view. It presents the photographer's frame of reference with regard to the subject. Graphically, framing affects composition because your eye follows the visual movement created by lines, shapes, and angles in the picture. In addition, the information that is included in the frame determines how we read the picture, just like how the clues leads to the solution of a mystery. What is included in the frame and what is excluded? Draw what you see in the frame and draw what you image is outside of the frame. Hold an empty slide frame to your eye and view your surroundings. See how you can create image by framing. Watch how the relationship of the forms changes as you move the frame to different place and tilt it at different angles. Look for the decisive moments when the forms come to a point of harmony or look interesting to you. Yes, dear students, that's all for today, for this week. See you next week. Have a nice day. Stay home, stay healthy, and stay safe. Bye bye.